They were salt of the earth farmers. They got involved in something very ugly.
Murder and torture. A historic and horrible case in Nebraska landed a man in prison decades ago. An expert on the crime believes he deserves to live his life as he pleases. Timothy Haverkamp spent 23 years in prison for 2 cult murders in the 1980s. Good evening, I'm Jennifer Griswold.
And I'm Craig DeGrelli. The state has now ended his parole supervision. Tonight, reporter Megan Matthews has details about the gruesome murders once called Nightmare in Rulo. Megan.
Craig, Jen, one man close to the case says this is about ordinary people who were pulled into a destructive religious cult. They did unthinkable things, and Haverkamp paid his price with 23 years of his life.
A lot of lives were ruined on that farm.
He now sits in a plaid shirt and glasses, but Timothy Haverkamp has spent most of his life in a jail cell for a cult murder 28 years ago.
People hear that name of that little tiny town and they think of the murders.
Rod Colvin knows the history, the torture, the violence, and the men who did it. In fact, he's fascinated by the 1985 Rulo cult killings.
And these are all from the 80s.
Colvin wrote a book about the heinous crimes committed on that hog farm by men, he says, who got sucked into a religious cult.
This group of paramilitary people felt that the government was out to get them and their farms were going to go under and the like. And that's sort of what propelled them into this movement, this militia movement.
Cult leader Mike Ryan believed he could talk to God. Colvin said he convinced dozens of others to prepare for a battle, including Tim Haverkamp.
Put all those pieces together and you have a tightly knit cult that together was capable of doing things that probably none of the individuals would have done themselves.
Cult members stole farm equipment, bought guns and drugs. They killed too.
One of the other heinous acts was the torture and murder of James Tim, who was a member of the cult, but who had fallen from favor with the cult leader.
Haverkamp and 4 other men chained Tim up, beat him, skinned him, and sodomized him with objects.
They were salt of the earth farmers. They got involved in something very ugly.
After serving 23 years for his role in Rulo, Haverkamp got out of prison in 2009. He requested to have his supervised parole commuted. He got it this week.
I thought it was not unreasonable that Tim Haverkamp be released, considering that all the other men who had been charged in this case had been released from prison.
In front of state officials, the now 52-year-old said the freedom will allow him to visit his parents in Kansas.
I don't have to put in paperwork and wait days at a time.
The Nebraska Board of Pardons voted unanimously to grant commutation. Pending some law verification, Haverkamp should be free of parole by the end of August. Live in the studio, Megan Matthews, KMTV Action 3 News.
Back in the 1980s, Haverkamp pleaded guilty to James Tim's torture and murder. He testified in court against cult leader Mike Ryan. Ryan is now on death row. Recently, he has been challenging the state's method of execution. This month, the Nebraska Supreme Court refused to delay the case.